Please subscribe my channel. The night she said it, there was no build-up, no soft pause, no warning. We were standing in the kitchen, the light above the sink flickering the way it always did, and she said, "I'm pregnant. We're keeping it. Not we should talk. Not how do you feel." A statement. A decision already made. I remember nodding without realizing I had done it, like my body reacted before my mind caught up. I told myself this was what adults did. They accepted reality and adjusted. But something in her tone lodged under my skin, sharp and quiet, refusing to leave. 4 weeks after that, life moved forward on rails I hadn't chosen. Doctor appointments were booked. Names were mentioned casually, then argued about as if the argument itself proved the future was real. Friends were told. Her hand found her stomach in public, protective and proud. I smiled when expected. At night, though, I lay awake listening to her breathe, replaying the moment she told me. The certainty. The way she hadn't looked at me, just past me, as if the decision had nothing to do with me at all. Her mother came over often. Too often. She brought vitamins, advice, opinions. She watched me with a careful politeness that felt like measurement. One evening, while my wife was in the shower, her mother sat across from me at the table and folded her hands. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't accuse. She said, "I want a DNA test." Just like that. Come. Surgical. As if she were ordering coffee. My first reaction was laughter, short and disbelieving. Then I saw her eyes. She wasn't joking. She was observing. When I told my wife what her mother had said, she snapped back faster than I'd ever seen. How dare she? How insulting. How unnecessary. The fight burned hot and fast, then cooled into something brittle. She agreed to the test the way people agree to do something they believe will prove a point. With confidence. With resentment. With the expectation of victory. I watched her sign the consent forms with steady hands. I told myself this would end the doubt. That we would laugh about it later. That her mother would apologize. That this was just noise. The waiting was worse than I expected. Days stretched. Conversation stayed shallow. We spoke about groceries, appointments, weather. Anything but the thing sitting between us. I started noticing details I had ignored before. How she angled her phone away from me. How she left the room to take calls. How stories about timelines never quite lined up when repeated. I hated myself for noticing. I hated myself more for not being surprised. The results arrived on a Tuesday. I remember because the trash hadn't been taken out yet and the kitchen smelled faintly sour. Her mother was there, sitting upright on the couch, purse on her lap like armor. My wife opened the envelope. She read silently. What? Twice. Her face didn't collapse. It emptied. Color drained in a slow, deliberate way, like someone turning down a dimmer switch. She looked at me then, finally, and for the first time since that night in the kitchen, she looked unsure. She didn't speak. Her mother did. She cleared her throat and said the words plainly, without satisfaction or cruelty. The test showed I wasn't the father. The sentence landed softly, which somehow made it worse. I felt a strange calm spread through me, the kind that arrives when fear is replaced by confirmation. My wife started talking then, fast and fractured. She said it was complicated. She said it didn't mean anything. She said it had only happened once. She said we were married, that we could work through this, that the baby still needed stability. I listened without interrupting. Not because I was stunned, but because I was suddenly very clear. I thought about the night in the kitchen. The certainty. The lack of invitation. The way the decision had been announced, not shared. It made sense now. I stood up, slowly, feeling the weight of the floor under my feet. I told her I was leaving. Not for a walk. Not to cool down. Leaving. The word felt solid in my mouth. She cried then, real tears this time, grabbing my arm, telling me I couldn't abandon her, that her mother had poisoned this, that blood didn't define family. Her mother said nothing. She just watched, the same measuring look, as if this outcome had always been one of several acceptable possibilities. I packed a bag. I moved around the apartment like a guest who had overstayed. Every object felt borrowed. Every memory suddenly negotiable. At the door, my wife asked what she was supposed to do. The question hung there, heavy and unfair. I told her she had already decided. She had decided the night she spoke without asking. She had decided long before that. I walked out into the evening air feeling lighter than I should have, emptier than I expected. The truth had changed everything, but it hadn't destroyed me. It had clarified me. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt like the next decision would finally be mine. In the days that followed, people asked careful questions, the kind designed to avoid choosing sides. I answered simply, without decoration. I slept better than I had in weeks. Silence replaced arguments. Space replaced tension. I didn't celebrate, but I didn't regret it either. The story was no longer mine to carry for her. It belonged to her choices. I learned that certainty delivered without consent is not partnership, it is control. And when control breaks, it rarely breaks quietly. I kept moving forward, not angry, not victorious, just done. Done negotiating reality. Done pretending surprise. Done accepting futures handed to me like orders. The test didn't end a marriage. It revealed what had already ended long before anyone asked the truth to speak out loud.